Let's solve an advanced Power Automate desktop use case with GPT and web scraping. So what I want to do first is to show you the new create text with GPT action. Let me drag it in. What this does is that we give it instructions and then it creates a text. But the most important part is that we can pass data into it. It means variables that we have scraped from the web page, and we can ask it to analyze that text. That means that we can get email support messages answered, and in our case, we will do sentiment analysis on Google reviews. For example, let's start simple. I'll say, how's the sentiment of this review? Good food, great atmosphere, and friendly staff. A fairly simple one, I know. Two variables are getting produced. Predict V2 response and predict V2 text response. Our answer is in the predict V2 text response. When I click save here, there's one condition from Microsoft, and that is that we always have a human validation of this text after I create text with GPT. Yes, this will not work in an automated environment. I will show you how to bypass it, but first we will need a display message or a display input dialog. If I bring in a display message, I need to have a predict V2 text response here. That it means I need to show it to a human. You can also go down here in variables produced and disable this. And now I don't really want to be presented with this. I just need to use this variable to save it somewhere or present it in an email. What you can do, and this is to bypass it, that is to, in this close message box automatically, click this, make a 0-second timeout, you're done. Let's try to run it, and then we will build a real case afterwards. So right now we are running, and if I go over here to the variables and I double click here on based on, and here we can see the sentiment. Sentiment is positive, blah, blah, blah. Let's solve the more advanced use case with multiple reviews from multiple businesses. I'll click close. Let's first find a sample data set. So I will say lucky famous burgers. Please do this with me. You'll learn so much faster. So this is where I want to navigate to. Then I want to click the Google reviews. I want to click newest, and then I want to scrape all this data for GPT to analyze. So one step at a time, please go with me. I'll go back here. I can just take this URL, mark it, and then I say Control-C to copy it, and let me just try it works. So if I Control-V, paste it in, this will indeed open up this site. I go to Power Automate Desktop. First, we will disable these two. Of course, we will web scrape the data for the create text with GPT to analyze, but for now, I will disable those two. So let me mark those two. I'll right-click, disable action. Then we will launch a new browser instance. So search for launch new. I'll go with Edge, as that is my preferred choice of browser, but you can go with Chrome or Firefox. I'll put it up here. This one, that will be in about blank. That will be a blank browser instance. And this is because soon we will be navigating to multiple websites. And here we will just open the instance, and then we will have a go to web page where we will navigate to these pages. So I go to web page after launch new here. In the URL, I just Control-V, paste this one in. In a little while, this will vary. So now we are navigating to here. I can click save. Let's see if this works. And this is just to open up a web page and open up a blank browser instance and navigate to a web page. That seems to work. It will not have any influence on the functionality of our web flow, whether this is a little bit smaller, but as you can see, I cannot see the reviews now as a human. And since we are creating this, also seeing it works, I might want to go to launch new Microsoft Edge, double click there, and in the Windows state, I'll choose maximized. Then I'll click save. This is just to open up a maximized browser. It will be easier to test. With that in place, I need to click a link. Let me show you. I need to click this link here. And I also need to make a selector for this link. That will be the UI element. I will need to make it so it works if this lucky famous burger have 977 Google reviews, or if we are in another business with a different kind of amount of Google reviews, we also want it to work there. Let me show you one step at a time, like always. So I'll find a click link on web page. Here, I'll just drag it in. I'll need to create a UI element in this dropdown, add UI element, and then I just have this red box. Once I found this span, I will press Ctrl on my keyboard, left click with my mouse, and I have created this UI element. I'll click Save. You can see it has the name span 976 Google reviews. This is just the name, but we might want to pick a better name, and we also need to fix this selector a bit. So go over here to this stack of elements. Let's first rename it, that's the easiest part. So here I just right click, I'll just say rename by right clicking. And here I can say something like link Google reviews, like this. And now I only changed the name, you can see it changes over here. I also want to double click it, and this is the address of the selector. So this selector, that is the address of the UI element, and this have two problems. You can see here that once this will get 977, it cannot find this element, or this one here will also change, or most likely change. So let's change these two so it will work. In the elements here, you can scroll a little bit down. Go here to number 9, and here you can see this ID. Let's remove this ID attribute from the div and test it works, like this. We can also scroll down to the last element, that will be the span. If I scroll down here, then you can see text equals to 976 Google reviews. We knew that. What we can do instead is to click this drop down and say ends with, and then we can just go over here and delete the 976. We now have a working selector, or we have to check, but we think we have. And this is trial and error. Try to do this with me. You will get good at selector work. And yes, you know what works after have worked with these flows for years. So yeah, it's not rocket science. Everyone can do it. Now we can test this. So now if I open up a browser, I navigate to Lucky Famous Burgers, and then we want to see it clicks Google reviews. It does. I also want to click Newest. So I go back to Power Automate Desktop. And here I'll find another click link on web page. I'll drag it in, click the UI element dropdown, add UI element, find the newest, press Ctrl on my keyboard, click it. We have created a new UI element. We will do the same with this. So instead of div newest, we will rename it to probably like link newest. So I'll go over to the UI elements, go here, right click, rename, and then instead of div, I'll just call it a link, like this. I also want to double click to inspect the selector. And here again, we have this G scrolling carousel with an ID. We want to change this. So if I scroll down here, we have it here. I'll just disable this. So we will just have the element, and we will check if that works. Then I can click save. Let's try to run this again. So we go to Lucky Famous Burgers, and we navigate to newest. We haven't seen it work with different restaurants or businesses, but it might do. Hint, hint, it will, but let us see. And this is how we always work. We work in step by steps with Power Automate Desktop. See one step works, that is very satisfying, by the way. Take the next step, see that works, and so forth. Let me minimize this, because now we need to scale this. We need to take like 6 restaurant URLs, and then we want to find the newest, and we want to extract some data. Let's do that. And what I want to do here is to minimize this. Yes, we opened a couple of browsers. Maybe we should have a closed web browser as well. I can go into the project here on my desktop. You can download this folder with data from the course materials below. And this is just an Excel sheet. Let me show you. There's an Excel book called GPT input. And here we have a sheet with 6 restaurants that we want to loop through. So we want to read this Excel sheet, loop through each of these Google ones find the sentiment, is it positive, negative, average, and also a summary of the reviews. Let's take it step by step. So I'll close this. Let's start by getting the path to this folder. So I'll say shift right click like this, copy as path. I then go to Power Automate Desktop. Here I will have a set variable. It's always best practice to have variables for things that can change. That could be a project path here, because I might want to move this to a different place. I will not keep it on my desktop, or I could move it to a colleague. So here in variable, I'll say project path. Down in value, I'll say Control V. I will delete these two quotation marks, and then I will say save. Now I have this. I can launch an Excel instance and open up the book. So I find a launch. I drag it in up here, and I'll not open a blank document, so I click this drop down and open the following document. Here I'll use the newly created project path because my Excel book is indeed in there, so I'll do this. Then I'll have a backward slash. I'll say GPT input.xlsx. This is our data. I can also choose to not have the instance visible. No need for that. Sometimes it's just funny to see that it reads through it. Then I click save. Then I can read the data. So I'll have a read from Excel worksheet. I'll drag that in after the launch. I will retrieve all available values from the worksheet like this. Do also remember to go to advanced and say first line of range contains column names. The variables produced here is called ExcelData. That's fine. I can click save. We also need to close this Excel instance again, otherwise Power Automate Desktop can and will lock this Excel instance until you restart your computer or close it with PowerShell. So we'll do this. And here in the end, I'll put this in. Let's not save the Excel for now. We will, don't worry, but again, one step at a time. Let's also have a close web browser, just so that we know that once we're done here, we can also close this web browser. I'll click save. Because we are going to see some of the actions takes place, I'll just disable it for now. We will enable it once this flow is ready. Now I will run the flow. It will open up here, and yes, it will navigate to the newest. It does nothing else, just like this, and then I just want to see it reads the Excel data. I haven't done anything with the Excel data, but what I want to see over here in Excel data, that it says 6 rows and 3 columns, and then we don't have an arrow down here. If I double click here, these are the restaurants that I want to iterate through and find the sentiment and the summary. So we have a data table here, and in the restaurant column, I want to loop these URLs. That's straightforward with Power Automate Desktop as with everything else. So then we want a for each, and let's talk about what we want to loop. We want to loop that we navigate to that site. We also want to click, and then we want to extract some data. So what we want to do here is to find a for each, drag it in before the go to web page. That is important. The value to iterate, that will be the Excel data. And here I can say CurrentRestaurant because this is a reference name. Best practice is to have a name that fits the data. So it says something about it, restaurant. I'll say save. And if you want to join 10,000 RPA developers in my community, we're helping each other with Power Automate Desktop and other RPA tools. The link is in the description below. There's also a video up in the right corner. It's a 100% free community. You can get help with solutions and your career. Back to the solution. Then I just need to either move these 3 up here or simply just click the end, move the end down here. Now we have them. We need to fix the go to web page so it doesn't go to Lucky Famous Burgers each time. So I will delete this. I'll click the X here, and here I'll say CurrentRestaurant. And then I also need to say which column do I want to get in. And that is restaurant. I'm always so bad in spelling these lives, but I hope that we are right. So then I click save. So now this should loop through each one of the datas. And let's see if it works. Let's see that if we have created a solution that could indeed navigate to the newest, then we can take the data scraping part and the save to Excel afterwards. So right now we're launching a new instance, and then we want to see it navigates to Lucky Famous Burgers. Click Google Reviews, newest, and then we want to see it navigates to the new URL, and can also click the reviews and the actual newest reviews. Nello seem to work fine. Checkers also seem to work fine. This will work. We have built a stable solution, and this required a little bit of selected tweak, so clap yourself on your shoulder. This is an advanced part. I really hope you remember this. Otherwise, simply just write me in the community, the I Love Automation community. We are there to help. So check a fill. I think this was the oldest one, or the last one, because we disabled the close web browser. Let's go see here. It was. And so this works. Now we can just, let me just have one of these open. Now we can take the data. And yes, we could click more on each of them to have more data. But for now, let's just take the first part of this so we don't confuse ourselves. But if you want a solution, again, just comment below and I can definitely show it for you. But since this is a GPT sentiment analysis advanced use case, then we will not spend so much time on this. So, but what we want to do is to find and extract data from web page here. So once we click the newest, we can extract the data like this. Then we just need to open up a page. It could be this one. Yes, I have a few. And here, I think I just want all the data. And that means I can easily take these items out one by one as structured data. But for now, let's just right click, extract element value, take all of this. And this one will be a wall of text. GPT is very competent in handling this and find a meaning here. So we just click finish. And here we can see that we have the data from web page. We can rename this to newest reviews. Like this. This is just to keep a better naming, so it says something about the data. Now we click save. So once this is done, we can fix the instruction. And that means that we want to also have this create text and display message back in the game. So I can click both of them, can right click, enable action, and can put them up here. And now we want to do a more specific prompt, because to get the best results with GPT, you need specific prompts. And yes, we will do that. So we will delete this. And now we will, of course, not only include the prompt, but also what we get up here from the newest reviews. So let's see. So here I will say read the below table of reviews and create run one row in CSV format. Sentiment summary. And yes, since we only have two, we could have just done two create text with GPT, but let's say that we want more out of this, then it's nice to have a CSV format. And I can say where sentiment is one adjective that describes the sentiment of all reviews. Make sure sentiment is an adjective and not a number. And this is the things that you need to write to be very specific, and it can still fail. So even though we make an out of the head prompt now, you'll probably need to tweak it a little bit more to go into production. But then we'll say and summary is a summary of reviews as a single object. Max 10 words total. No headers to the data. Don't add any introduction text. Sometimes the GPT will add here's your review or something like that. We don't need that. And then I want to say don't add quotation marks to the response. That's also something it does to outside the results. Now we are here. We can save this not into predict v2 text response. Let's give it a newer one. And here I can say something like sentiment analysis. And then we just need to make sure that we also change it down here in display message. I should probably have changed it over here in the flow variables, because now I need to go in here and then I need to change it here. Pick the variable. I could also use the variable picker here, like this. And now we're presenting it here in the display message for 0 seconds. So now we are doing this sentiment analysis. Now we can also save it back to our Excel data. And that is because we want it here in the sentiment and in the summary. But we want to, since this is coming to us in a CSV format, that will be 2 items, comma separated, then we first need to split them and before we can add them. So let's do so. So once we have created this text, we will find a split text here. So now we're splitting up this sentiment analysis. So the text split, that will be the sentiment analysis. And again, this is because it comes as CSV, comes as comma separated. So we need to have the sentiment and the summary separated. Then we want to say the delimiter type, that will be custom. We will have a comma here. And then variables produced, that could be the sentiment analysis as a list. So now we split it into 2 items, or more if we had more. So then we have this sentiment analysis. Now we can write it back to this Excel data. Here we need a helping variable, and that is because we need to keep track of which row we're putting it into. So here we have a set variable that doesn't, we cannot find this elsewhere, so we just make our own counter. So this one will be called RowIndex. That one will be called 0. That's because the first row of data table is indexed 0. So the first time we navigate to this Excel data, this row index should be 0. That's where we want to write it to. And then we can just find an increase variable, have it in the end. That's very important. You have it here. Say the variable name, that will be RowIndex, like this, increase by 1, click save. Now we can save it to the data table, and after that we write it to Excel. So find a set variable. Make sure you have it between the split text and the increase variable. So where do we want to save it to? I know it's in Excel data. And then I just need to specify which cell it is. And first we have this row index. I need to write that in hard brackets. Then I also have the next one, that is the column. And here I can have an index, or simply just say sentiment, because that's the name of my column header in this data table. What do I want to write out? Well, I have this list called SentimentAnalysisAsList, and here I need to pick the first item. So I simply just go here, find the SentimentAnalysisAsList, and here to pick the first item, I will have hard brackets, index 0. In programming, all these collections are 0 index. That means that the first element is index 0. So, and let me just steal this, or I can actually do something really clever. I can save this, simply just right click, copy, Control V, and then I can just change a little bit here, because now I also want a summary. I need to be save that to a separate summary like this, and that will be from the next item in the list. I will have this. So now we're saving it to the Excel data. Shouldn't we go try run it? And I will also click all these down here so I don't have any browsers open. We can see it works. Let's also go down to close web browser, enable this action. So a fairly simple flow. Yes, we learned a lot of techniques, but you can easily build this yourself. Let us go through them. Let's talk a little bit about what we accomplished today, because this is huge. We still haven't saved it to Excel, but that will just be peanuts. If we're really able to get the data out, update this entire data table, then we just need to have a component that writes the data back to Excel. So here it still runs, so it doesn't fail. That's the first step. And don't worry, you will fail a lot. You will have errors in your flows. I have that as well, even though that I'm quite experienced. Simply just practice. You will get good at this. This is not rocket science, and this will definitely be a skill that the hiring managers in the future wants. So simply just practice. Take these guides, open up Power Automate Desktop and do the exercises with me. Everything is designed for you to copy, so there's no private data here that you cannot access. You can even download the Excel. So we have the Mambo Italiano. That one doesn't look good. I think this is the last one, to check fill a second. If this works, then we just need to save it to Excel. And we also need to see that one was here. And if I go up here to ExcelData, and I can see all my sentiment analysis are equal, I probably made a mistake. That I really did. So I can click close here. And what I think when I see these, all these are equal, and I say I forgot to map a variable or something, and I think it's in this create text with GPT. We didn't include the variable that we wanted. That was the NewestReviews. So I simply just go down here, click the X, find the NewestReviews like this, click save, click run. Now it will work. So I will fast forward over this. And if I go up to ExcelData, now I have it here. We can still see that we need to work a little bit with our prompt because we got a 1 here, even though we explicitly said that we didn't want to, but that will be a task for you. This flow works, but we just need to write it to Excel. So right after this close Excel, we'll find a write to Excel worksheet. Find it here. Then I just need to say, what value do I need to write? I will write the ExcelData. Where do I want to write it? In column A2, that's where it starts, the table, because we already had headers in it. We want to keep those. Then I can click Save. Then in the Close Excel, I'll specify Save Document As. And now go into the project path. And here I can say GPT output.xlsx instead. And let us have a large O, so we're consistent in the naming. Now I will click save, I will run this, and I will fast forward once more. And we're back for the last part of the flow. I think we have one restaurant more. That will be this Gramercy Kitchen. It will take it out here. And the essence of this is that we're good at creating one step at a time. And let us go out to the Excel, then the rest will follow. Here we have the GPT output, and we have printed it out. So if we're good at one step, if we apply all the best practices for naming and all this, the rest will follow. It will be easy to build, and it will also be easy to maintain. I think you should learn all these best practices up here towards Power Automate desktop development. That will make you an advanced developer. You can also see this advanced GPT use case, which I also built up here.